what is your take on the difference between a leader and a boss? Jamison.
Well, I want to give Jesus' take. So we're going straight into the word. I've got here Mark chapter 10, verses 42 to 45. And I think this passage is awesome because it really does cover the heart of biblical and Christian leadership. And this is Jesus speaking. So it says, "So Jesus called them together," so referring to the disciples, "and said, 'You know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many.'" So Jesus says that there's a difference between just being a boss by position and being a leader according to God's will. And essentially the heart of the way God sees leadership is servanthood. So a true leader is a servant, whereas a boss is just a person in authority. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have that leadership heart, or on the contrary, that they do. But it's essentially a position of authority, yeah.
Yeah. Has anyone ever had a boss? Like, so in reference to your own life, what is it like to be submitted to a boss as opposed to a leader? We'll start with you again.
Oh, with me?
Yeah.
To be honest, I think in the workplaces that I've been at, I've had great leaders and great bosses. Actually, I had one boss which I didn't find pleasant. This boss, they hired me, and I really struggled working there. I didn't feel welcomed. And eventually it got to a point where I decided to resign from that place. And what that boss said was, "I knew you would quit." And that kind of did hurt, you know what I mean? Instead of being in that process, instead of leading me towards, how can we benefit you, or how can we build you up in this workplace, there was no education. There was no, look, I can see you're struggling with this. Let's help you. It was, I just knew you were going to quit. So she saw that coming and still didn't have an attempt to help me.
Yeah.
So one, that hinders the flow of their workplace. So already it's like that boss didn't obviously care about how it was going to work, and also didn't care about me.
Yeah.
So a boss is just a person who is in that position, but a leader is someone who would lead their people towards succeeding for the place or the greater goal, the vision.
Yep.
So that's my experience with a bad boss.
Guara, have you had a leader and a boss in your workplaces or just in life?
Yes, I've got a lot of story about about bosses, because initially I would think like a boss should be a leader because you're in that place of authority. Like if we put this in the kingdom perspective, right? A leader is someone who leads by example, who do what they say and do it in action.
Yeah.
Like they don't just say it, but they actually do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think bosses should also be leaders because they run the company. Like it's about the people. It's not about you.
Yeah.
And like sadly, majority of the bosses nowadays is they tell people what to do instead of encouraging them. Like, what can I do to improve your work? What can I do to help you? You lead the example. Like you have that experience. Like bosses have experience. That's why they're in that place of authority.
Yeah.
What can I do to help you in this area? All that. But yeah, it's really sad to have bosses that just tell people what to do now. Like, you guys should be leaders. If you're not able to lead, you shouldn't be a boss. Like, you can see that they don't enjoy their work, like, because they don't love the people, they don't love the work. Like Jamison said, it's about the greatest leader of all is the servant of all. They don't want to serve. That's the thing about bosses. But yeah, I could go on because I've had so many like bad experience with bosses, but nothing against them. Like I love them and that, but it's just that yeah, they just don't know how to serve.
Yeah.
Yeah, the difference between a leader and a boss is they don't know how to serve people.
Yeah.
It makes it about them instead of like us church leaders. We don't point to ourselves; we point to God. Like
Yeah.
it's all about Him. I'm doing what I'm doing because it's for God.
Yeah.
You know, so leading by example. But yeah,
Yeah, Cheyenne.
Yeah, I agree with Jamison in saying that a boss like that is just a title, it's just a position. And yes, I also think that yeah, the intention and mindset of each are different. Where like a boss will like they prioritize like monetary gain or like personal gain, whereas a leader knows or should know, a good leader knows that in order to achieve an outcome, like every part is valuable, every role matters, and so a good leader knows how to influence and encourage their team. I've heard it said that leadership is influence. So yeah, a boss can have a title but have no influence. They can say this is what you have to do, but people will obey and do what they say because they're getting paid or out of fear, but they have no like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Like I want to do it. I want to see the business thrive. Yeah, so I think that's the difference between a boss and a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Gerard?
Yeah, no, so I've been blessed enough to work in places where I had a good boss. But in those workplaces, there were like some like managers. I heard stories of like really poor people management skills. They would tell me stories and stuff, and it was more boss-like, so just telling them what to do, sit down, shut up and work, that type of vibe. One example that's just come to me is in the classroom. So we've all had experiences in a classroom where we've had teachers who are like, sit down, shut up, here's a textbook, copy the questions, write the answers. And then we've had other teachers who make everything engaging, they lead the class. So you can sort of get that, you can sort of understand where I'm trying to get to in terms of what a boss looks like versus a leader. So a leader is someone who is willing to get their hands dirty, willing to,
That's key.
yeah, willing to sort of stoop low. Like Jesus, he in the Bible it says he took the form of a lowly servant. He says the greatest of all is the servant of all. One of the key things he did before he was hung on a cross was he washed his disciples' feet. That's a leader. So he wasn't afraid to go down to the lowest level of a servant. Historically, the servant that washes a guest's feet is the lowest ranking servant. So Jesus took that lowest rank in that house, not only to serve, but also to lead them and show them what true leadership looks like. And you see it through the Gospels, you see it through the epistles, you see it through the whole New Testament of what Jesus's idea of leadership looks like, what God-given leadership looks like. So you can definitely see it in different corporations today, organizations, schools and stuff. So the biggest difference, like what everyone else has said, just sort of echoing what they're saying, is a boss doesn't stoop down to their level. It's just sit down, shut up and work. And the leader is like, let's do this together. Let me help you through it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I felt that I am privileged to have never been under a really bad boss. Like all my teachers, all of my workplace bosses, have been people that I wanted to follow. So, and I think that's a mark of a leader versus a boss. A boss, like Chayan said, you are obligated to follow because they give you your paycheck, and they have a certain degree of authority over you in the workplace. But then a leader is someone that you want to follow, is someone that you are inspired by, and that is, I think, another difference in that a leader doesn't have to be at the very top for you to want to follow them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could be your peer, sometimes it could be just your workmate, but they are inspiring you and they are leading you in that way. And I think in that sense we can all be leaders.